Hey guys, welcome back to the Jays Put Down podcast. I'm your host Jaden, and today we're going to be doing NFL around the table, just giving you guys updates going around the league, news you probably heard, but if you hadn't, just spin about that, and just training camp has started for today. 26 of the 32 NFL teams, so a few storylines going around there, and a lot of interesting things to talk about. But before we get started on that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check us out here on Jay's Fit Down. Also follow us on TikTok and Instagram as well. So just want to put that out there. And we are on every audio podcast platform. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. You can find us there, Jay's Fit Down, exclamation point. You search that up and you will see us right there, okay? But yeah, like I said, training camp has begun for 26 out of 32 NFL teams today. So mostly everybody's back at practice and ramping up, getting ready for the season, which is going to start in September. Preseason, of course, will start on July 31st with the Hall of Fame game between the Chargers and I believe the Lions, if I'm not mistaken. But officially, the season, of course, is going to start in September, as we all know. And so it's fast approaching and a lot to get to, lots to unpack over the next, month and a half or so. But yeah, so first up on the list here, will a revamping defense for the Bills pay off here in the 2025 season? So the Bills, of course, last couple of years, we all know the story with them. They made it to the playoffs, lost against the Chiefs, right? And it's unfortunate for them. Because they can't get over the hump defensively. They just can't. They just have not been able to stop Patrick Mahomes. So what do? They go in and get a few guys like Joey Bosa in free agency, right? To help on the defensive line. They also draft 6 new defensive players. So we're going to see how that turns out for them. Secondary has been a problem for the Bills. Kyrie Elam is no longer on the team. He's down the Cowboys. So interesting to see how that secondary shapes up. We know Christian Benford, he got extended along with Greg Rousseau, their star defensive end. So Von Miller left in free agency to the Commanders. So that team is going to look pretty different on the defensive side of football. Everybody was worrying about the Bills last year with how their receivers, look after Stephon Diggs left, right? Everybody's talking about like who's Josh Allen going to throw to, and he did pretty all right, I would say, last season, and everything was fine for him, right? And except just beating the Chiefs in the playoffs. But I expect Keon Coleman to have a productive second year. His rookie year wasn't horrible by any means, not bad. He had a decent rookie year, but I definitely expect him to take a jump from there. And again, you got guys like Khalil Shakir, who is emerged as one of the underrated top receiving targets in the NFL. Definitely a top 20 receiver for sure. And statistically, if Josh Allen is throwing him the ball enough, he could be a top 15 receiver, in the league. So that's just something to think about. But moving on, and also James Cook, you got to think about him, in that run game. Like once he's healthy, and when he's clicking with the ball, running the football. I mean, the Bills are hard to stop. So the question is, can they beat the Chiefs? Which is what we've been asking for years, and they have not been able to do that for years. So moving on, staying in the AFC East, Mike McDaniel. Here's my thing on the Dolphins, man. I love Mike McDaniel. He's a great coach. He's a great guy. He's definitely the type of guy you want. Being a former player myself with football, like he's definitely the type of coach you want. He's able to find that balance between, understanding his players, but also being a coach and leading them, right? And understanding what his guys are best at and putting them in the best positions to succeed. But at the same time, the Dolphins, just like back-to-back 9-8 seasons. They missed the playoffs last year. After they played in the previous year against the Chiefs, right? They lost. They just weren't prepared at all for that weather. I mean, Tua looked awful. So I definitely say for the Dolphins, if the Dolphins do not make the playoffs this year, and if Tua Tagovailoa does not have a consistent season this year, if he does not have a healthy, consistent season this year, like I would say him and Mike McDaniel are on the hot seat for real, and that's just what it is. They trade away Jalen Ramsey, so Your secondary, your secondary has got to perform. It's going to see where guys can step up. Cam Smith, you hope he can step up there, and in that one of those quarterback roles, and see who else is going to again help them on that side of the football, right? And that's just something I'm looking out for Miami. That's what I'm watching when it comes to them. Offensively, I'm not too worried about them. Like, I mean, look, receiving court, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I mean, and Devon Achane at running back. He's amazing, great player, great fantasy pickup for sure. So if you guys need a running back for fantasy this year, I definitely would pick up Devon Achane because he was great for me last year. But again, like I said, just man, the Dolphins have got to figure it out this year. They got to be better. I mean, you're in a division with the Bills. I mean, it's going to be tough. And the Jets, I mean, I'm not really expecting them to do much in year one under Aaron Glenn and Justin Fields. I mean, they might win like 6 to 7 games, but I don't see any more than that until they kind of get that roster, settled in, right? So, and then what everybody's been talking about lately over the past day or so is Jerry Jones's comments. Gosh, this dude is such a Jerry Jones' comments on Michael Parsons, and what he was basically saying, like, I think one of the reporters asked Jerry, like, "Hey, like, what's up, Michael Parsons? He's going to get his deal or whatnot." Basically Jerry was like, "Yeah, well, we don't pay a guy to only play like 6 games or whatever." And he's like, so, and we like I did it last year. I paid one of the, what he's considered one of the top players at the position, the highest contract at that position at the time, and we only played like a quarter or so of the season, and so essentially he was saying like he's probably not going to pay Michael Parsons, or at least not anytime soon. So basically Jerry was just he's trashing his players. I mean, and look, and Michael Parsons, like, it may have been true. Yes, that may be true. But you just don't, if you're the owner, you just don't do that, right? The Cowboys are just such a huge dysfunction. That team is just like a pile of hot trash that just like, I mean, organizationally, the Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals might be the two worst run organizations in the entire NFL. And, I talked about the Bengals the other day on an episode, my last episode. You guys can check that out here on the channel. But I mean, the Cowboys, man, they won those Super Bowls in the 90s, but since then they have not made an NFC Championship game in over 30 years. And again, it's the same consistent stuff year after year after year. And it's like, you almost feel bad for Cowboys. No, I'm kidding. I don't feel bad for Cowboys fans. But you almost feel bad for Cowboys fans because of the crap they have to deal with their team and the owner that runs the team. So again, until Jerry Jones steps down, the Cowboys will not sniff another Super Bowl. Heck, they may not sniff. They may not sniff another playoff game. Who knows? I mean, considering how things went last year and how Dak plays at certain points throughout the season each year. From what I've seen, like, it's just not. I don't think it's. I highly doubt the Cowboys will ever make it to another Super Bowl ever. In my lifetime, at least. Maybe my kids' lifetime, maybe not even theirs, but I don't think they're going to make it back to Super Bowl ever. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm listening to that soundbite. I saw the video too, and I'm like, man, this is just like, why would you do that? Then the coach Brian, what's his name? Not Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer, who's the head coach. He's sitting there just like, like, he didn't even know what to say. It's like, it's crazy, man. Like, you're the owner. Why are you doing that? It's just not something you go out and you say. It's not what you do. So, but I mean, hey, other news: T.J. Watt, of course, got paid his money, 3-year, $123 million extension on his contract, so making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL currently. Again, he reset the market, so now it's like you got other edge rushers who already get paid, i.e. a Marco Parsons, i.e. a Trey Hendrickson, who I'll talk about in a second, and it's like, but TJ Watt absolutely deserves it. I mean, since he got drafted in 2017, he's been top of the league in sacks and interceptions for a deep for an edge rusher. He's a great player, man. He's an awesome player. He's a force of nature. Like when you play against him, he's going to wreck your offensive game plan if you do not cater around to keeping him contained. And sometimes you can't even do that. You just got to pray that he doesn't just wreck it up. That's the type of player that he is. He's been that way since he got in the NFL. Led the league in sacks, a year or two ago. Not a year ago, because that was Trey Hendrickson last year. So about maybe 2 years ago, I think 2023 season, he led the NFL in sacks. Guy just got a relentless motor, man. He gets after it every single day, every single year. So definitely deserves the money. It's been a while, like a long time coming for the contract, but the Steelers do get it done and get him his money. So now I'm looking to see if the Bengals are going to do that for Trey Hendrickson, and like I mentioned on my other podcast, I really, I don't understand like what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing here. Trey Hendrickson, again, led the NFL with 17 and a half sacks last year. Now you paid Jamar Chase, you paid Joe Burrow, you paid T. Higgins, right? You take care of those guys on offense. Now your defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year, abysmal. And it's the reason why your team did not make the playoffs. Joe Burrow put up a 43 touchdown, 9 interception season, 4,900 something passing yards. Jamar Chase led the NFL in receiving. They didn't make the playoffs. Why? Because the defense was horrible, and one of the only consistent players on that defense was Trey Hendrickson. He's like, hey, I've been one of your best players, and I'm not paid yet. So he's holding out of training camp right now, so that's the case for them. And if he doesn't play this year, then it's really going to be bad for the Bengals, like really bad, because again, if they don't have him on the field, like they're going to be even worse defensively. And you're looking at another bad season, and Zach Taylor might be on the hot seat, right? So, just like again, the Bengals are just a horribly ran organization. And when my friends I was talking to the other day pointed this out, like they just suck. They're the roots, the foundation of that franchise, just they logistically just they don't make sense. They don't make the right decisions, right calls. Still haven't paid Shamar Stewart, your first round pick. Why? All these things, man, just crazy stuff. So, but staying in the AFC North, now it's my time to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. And can this team finally get over the hump and make it to a Super Bowl? Not even just winning. Can they make it to one? And so far, I'm just listen. The Bengals had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. They held their opponents to 15.4 points per game over the last 7 games. They returned all but 4 starters on the team. You go and pick up DeAndre Hopkins, right? So you get Lamar Jackson. Again, now DeAndre is not in his prime as a receiver, obviously, but he's still a decent receiver. So you go get a guy like that. You still got Rashad Bateman out there on offense at the receiver position. Zay Flowers, who emerged as a good target last year for Jackson, and I expect Flowers to get more touches this season. But as long as Lamar Jackson being the type of player that he is, the Ravens again are always going to. He's the type of guy, man, that's just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna pull it down. I'm gonna run it. And when you get to playoffs, man, when you get to that point, that's not always going to work. You got to be able to throw the football, and you got to be able to run the football. You really got to be able to run the football. But see, teams know that, so defenses know that, so they stop that. Now some teams will just be able to do it anyway, like the Eagles, and the Chiefs at certain points. They'll be able to run the ball regardless because they're just that good. But usually defenses will plan for that because they know that's what you want to do, especially you're in those cold weather states like in Baltimore and Buffalo and those places like that, right? They're going to plan for that. So you have got to be able to pass the football, in tough weather as well. You got to be able to throw the football. You got to be able to move the chains, keep the offense moving, keep the offense on the field, let your defense, rest, keep the other team's offense on the sideline as well, right? That's a good formula for the playoffs. Run the football, eat the clock, score, play good defense, right? And the Ravens, man, they just haven't been able to do it since Lamar Jackson has become the starter for the Ravens, and I don't know if they're ever going to be able to do it. Like, Lamar is an amazing player. I love Lamar. He's one of the best in the league at that position, obviously. But again, until he's able to lead his team to a Super Bowl, we have to have the conversation like, man, like, is he really that great? Like, I mean, again, Jalen Hurts has done this already. Now, Josh Allen has not, and I put him in the same boat with Jackson here, right? They just haven't been able to get over that hump and make it to a Super Bowl. And all of it has not been those quarterbacks' fault specifically. It's been organizational things. It's been like, them, the coaching decisions. Like, why we have a beast at running back in Derrick Henry, and you're not giving him football in the playoffs. Why? Why are we not doing that? So it comes down to multiple reasons and multiple things. But for me, the Ravens, man, they got to figure it out, man. I think this year could be that year. Now, am I picking them to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? Of course not. I'd be stupid to do so. I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs to again represent the AFC until some team proves otherwise and proves that is wrong. But like the last previous years, it's a possibility for Baltimore to do it. So the only question is, can they pony up it and just do it, right? And I don't know if they'll be able to. I feel like this, again, this could be the year. But we don't know. We'll have to see that, right? So moving on, kind of to my last little point here on the podcast. Again, just it's so much to cover, and I'll have more episodes for you guys coming out over the next couple of days, whatever, but the next couple of weeks as well. But just sticking within here today, my last little point is Trevor Lawrence, man, the Jacksonville Jaguars went 4-13 last year. Trevor Lawrence, is it safe to say that Trevor Lawrence might be a bust? Like, is it safe to say that this guy that was getting so much hype coming out of Clemson in the 2020 draft, is it safe to say this guy, is he still living up to those expectations? Obviously not. He's been inconsistent throughout his whole 4 years in his career. And I think if Trevor Lawrence does not bounce back this year, I think the Jaguars, man, you got to have some tough conversations. I don't know what that entails exactly, but I mean, like, you got the quarterback position is obviously the most important position in the game of football. Some people might say it's one of the most important, whatever. Regardless, it's very important. And if you don't have consistent play at the quarterback position, you're not going to be able to win in this league. You will not be able to win in the playoffs. So, the Jaguars, man, they got very skilled players at their receiver position, running back position. You got Trevor Etienne. You got Travis Etienne. You got Brian Thomas Jr., who as a rookie had an amazing year for a rookie last year. You go and draft Travis Hunter, right? So my thing with the Jaguars is Trevor Lawrence has got to figure out. He's got to be consistent. He has got to put up, he's got to put up equal performances week in, week out, so that his team can be successful and win football games. That's just the matter of the discussion. So I'm very interested to see if they'll be able to do that, if he will be able to do that and rise to the occasion. And you got a new coach in Liam Cohen, who's a good offensive mind. He was a previous offensive play caller for the Buccaneers, helped Baker Mayfield out. So maybe Trevor Lawrence will have a bounce back here. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned right now, I don't know, man. We'll have to see. But that's it for today's show on Jay's Fifth Down. Thank you guys for tuning in, watching, listening, however you have, spent your time with us here today. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.